Well, that's the wrong camera. Oh, I'm having a heck of a day already. Hey, welcome everybody to the live stream. This is TFL Live, or Ask for Help, the first layer. My name's Richard. I'm in my lab coat today and I'm sitting on it. I hope you all can see me okay. If you can, just let me know in the chat. Hey, we got ourselves our first super chat of the day from Snapshot FPV. Thank you for the $10. That's going to go a long way to helping us with our build on the new Voron dedication build for Peter Reynolds. I just spoke with his son this morning. We had a wonderful talk, and I'll give you all the news about what's happening with his wake and so on in an upcoming video. But let's see who we got. We've got Sergio from HVAC A to Z, pardon me. We've got DeWitt Canada's here with 3D Experiments, Build It Basement, Benny Brady, David Sell, Golden Jaguar 3D. Hello to you all. I know that my good friend Tim Postma is here as well. I'm just going to back up here a little bit. And let's see, where is Mr. Tim Postma? You think it'll let me back up? It will not. But I know that Tim Postma's here. Brendan Wilson is here. This is so weird. Okay, we've got David. We got lots of people here, but I want to say hi to everybody. We have a new member of our community here with us today as well. And he is working on the Hero Me 7. Please introduce yourself or say something in chat so I know. Build It Basement. I've been having some wonderful conversations with him. Hello there, Matt Gurman and Richard Taylor. Welcome, welcome, welcome. There's Randy. And I feel like I should have... Remember back in the day when Romper Room was around? I hope you guys can hear me okay and I'm not distorted too much. I know that I had some audio problems before we got started today. I got a little static in the audio. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's just nonsense today. I don't know what's happening. I'm going to have to figure that out. There it is, John. John is here. There's Curtis Joseph. Greetings, greetings, greetings. I know I got a little static in the audio. I apologize for that. I've got to figure out what's going on. So bear with me today. I'm going to try and get to a lot of stuff. You'll see I've got the Ender 3 here on the table today. We're going to talk a little bit about bed leveling. I know that a lot of people... Curtis Joseph says, I hear you. Great, thank you very much. For anybody that... First of all, before I get into this, I just want to say that anybody that wants to help out with our build for the Voron 300 dedication build to Peter Reynolds, I would really appreciate if you use the super chat today. That really works. Hey, there's Build It Basement just jumped in with a $50. Thank you very much. A $50 super chat, that helps. And Snapshot FPV led things off today with a $10 super chat. We still need to get ourselves a build plate for this, as well as the heater and the flex plate. We need some panels, just some minor stuff. We're still working to try and get the electronics from Big Tree Tech on this. And I appreciate everybody's help. If you've got a question today and you'd like to help things out along the way, just hit that super chat if I answer your question. First question today comes from Tim Postman. He says, kind sir, I hope you can share my advice, mention my fix on my Lowellsbot in case it helps others. Yes, I will be talking a little bit about that today as well. There's Brendan Wilson. Welcome, welcome. And everybody's just saying hi to everybody else. Thank you everybody so far for your super chats. They're going to go a long way to helping us get this done. I'd like to unveil this Voron 3D printer at Maker Faire. I want to do a dedication at Maker Faire. For anybody that doesn't know who Peter was, he was local here to Calgary. And I know I keep talking about him in recent streams, but I was very close to him, and just like I am with DeWitt, very close. And he was an interesting guy. In his 70s, he decided to start taking up 3D printing as a hobby because his hands didn't quite work as well as they used to. He used to do some amazing stuff. And the stuff that he was doing with woodworking and scroll saw was just amazing. I saw some very beautiful pieces from flowers that he had made that he had put into frames, to birdhouses, to very fine, very detailed work using a scroll saw. And he got to the point where he couldn't do that anymore, so he thought, well, let's take up 3D printing, and got his first 3D printer and was so frustrated with it, couldn't get it going very well. And he was here a lot. Thank you, HVAC A to Z, for chipping in $20 from HVAC A to Z. Thank you very much for making that a little bit closer to our goal. So at this stage, he came on to our stream. One day he found my live stream and joined it, and found out that I lived in the same city in Calgary, Alberta, and contacted me, reached out to me privately, and asked me if I could help him. And I said, absolutely. I said, what can I help you with? And I went over and had a look at his setup at the time, and he was doing some minor things wrong. He hadn't set his bed right, and he was trying to put too much into a 3D printer before he even really got to know the 3D printer. And once we backed things off a little bit, he got to know the printer quite well, how to use the software, how to manipulate the slicing software like Cura, and then he was off to the races, man. He started printing a bunch of stuff, and then he bought another printer, and then he bought another printer, and then he was very curious about resin, so he bought himself a resin printer, and finally he bought himself a Voron in December of 2021 as a Christmas gift. And he bought the Voron 350, the FormBot, I believe it was the FormBot kit. Asked me to come over and help him because in 2021, of course, I had my build completed and I was using it, and he asked me for some help, and I printed him some parts, and I went over and helped him build it, and now, of course, it's here. Some things didn't work very well. Thank you very much, Golden Jaguar. I'm going to try and get to the questions. Hello, Archer. I see you there. But at the end of the day, we would hang out and just chat and talk and BS about different things. And he was vocal about things that frustrated him, and I would try and reel him back a little bit and help him solve the problems that he was having, and we just became very close, and he was a very good friend. So I want to dedicate this build to him, and I think it's important that I do that because he was a friend, and he really was learning a lot in his 70s about 3D printing, and was making tremendous projects. He did, and I mentioned this in my post earlier this week, he made the Hobbit House, which is an STL that you can find. I think you can download it from Gambody. I'm not sure, but it also doubles as a flower pot, and that was the first big thing that he did. And then he called me over one day just to come over and have coffee, and he pulls out this great big giant leg that he had 3D printed, and I was kind of curious as to what he was printing. And he printed himself the leg for the Balrog. Again, this is another model from Gambody. I made the mistake of introducing him to Gambody, and he had quite a collection of models at the end. And he printed the entire Balrog. I think it stood about 22 inches tall when it was done. He had the whip done, the whole 9 yards. And he turned around and printed Gandalf to go with it, painted the whole thing, asked me for some advice on painting, and he did a wonderful job on the paint job. I don't know what happened to it, if it's still in his house. I have a funny feeling it ended up in his office at home, but I know that his wife was getting a little bit concerned about it being in the living room. She wasn't real happy with it being in the living room, even though it turned out to be a wonderful piece. They had very different tastes when it came to models and things like that. But he had made some wonderful things, birdhouses, all that kind of stuff, and it was wonderful. I catch up in the reverse tonight when I watch the video. Okay, build it, basement. We'll talk later. Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk later as well. Thank you for being a part of our stream today. And I want to thank Build It Basement as well. He's gotten me in contact with somebody who may be able to help with some of the things that we're missing for this build. And we'll see how that works out. And I'll let you guys know how that goes. But anyway, so let's get on to what we're talking about today. One of the things that people send me messages on is bed leveling. And I get that quite often, actually. And clogs with the hot end. And sometimes they're related, sometimes they're not. Tim Postma reminded me today about an event that he had on his Lowell's bot. He was getting issues with under extrusion and then over extrusion. And it was causing issues all of a sudden, and it found out that he had a blockage inside the nozzle. And when we get blockages in our nozzle, it's tough to clean out sometimes because we don't really think about that, but we can get blockages in a nozzle. And I'm going to grab a nozzle real quick here because I have one. So I've got one here. Let me just switch cameras to camera 2, and I'll show this to you guys. There we go. Okay. So here I have a nozzle. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. So this is a Creality nozzle. It's not the same as what you're going to find on the Lowell's bot. They're a little bit differently. But what happens is when we get a blockage, we typically get it in this section here between the heat sink and the heater block. So what happens is when that material gets pulled up into the throat, which is this piece right here, when that happens, it can cool off here. And sometimes it can build up over time. It doesn't happen right away. It can build up over time. And if you heat the hot end up to the maximum temperature that your printer will go and leave it for a few minutes, you can take a small tool, whether that be one of these, one of your Allen keys, and get down in there and push that blockage through. You can do that sometimes. Sometimes you have to take the nozzle off to free it up. Sometimes you can take a needle, which I believe I have in here. I have a couple of things in here. Okay, so we've got this and we have this. These are the two things that I use often. One is a needle. This is just a 0.4 millimeter needle, and what I will do is I will take it, and while it's hot, I will get it up inside the nozzle here. I'm shaking a little bit, so bear with me. Okay, there we go. I get it up inside the nozzle and I push that material free. So I try and push that while this is warm. This has to be hot. So I will push this up inside. I let it go so it fell out. This needle will not damage your hot end. Okay? And these are readily available. They're typically sold as acupuncture needles, but you can find them as nozzle cleaning from your favorite vendor. You can find them online. And all you're going to do is you're just going to push that material up and try and free it from inside this area. Once you've done that, then you can take another tool like this tool here that I happen to have, and you can buy these online as well, and you're going to take that and you're going to push it down through the top to push out any excess material out of the bottom. And you'll push it up and down like so, and it will dislodge anything that is in there. Now, if it's something that's hard that's not going to melt, it's not going to dislodge. So I want you guys to think about that when you get a clog, and if it's under extruding all of a sudden, chances are you have a clog in here. It's not software, it's not bed level, it usually has something to do with a clog. And I have one actually on this printer right now. It will print for about 3 or 4 layers, and then it clogs itself, and then it pushes that clog free. And then, of course, by that time, the print's already ruined. So I've got to go in, and I rebuilt this one today so that I can take this and put it on this printer and get things back up and running so that this works again really, really well. And that's really what I'm hoping for. Let's go back to our chat here. There is Earlson. Hello, have you ever had an issue printing single wall prints with a large nozzle? Oh, that kind of went up there real fast. Let me see if I can go back a little bit. You know what? This thing is dumb. I opened up the chat and it's just kind of dumb. Come on. Load up again. Load up again. I really hate YouTube sometimes. I really do. Nothing seems to work when I want it to work. Well, we'll get there. I'll get it reloaded and I'll look at the chat here in just a second. I should bring my tablet out to do this, to look at the chat. I usually have a better chance looking at the chat when I do that. And of course it reloaded the studio, but didn't reload the studio. Come on now. Come on. Here we go. Well, while that's doing that, let's talk a little bit about bed leveling. I get asked, how do I bed level my bed? And the simplest way to do it, and I do this all the time, even if I've got a BL Touch, and I've got a BL Touch on this particular printer right now. Let me go over to, there we go, that's loading back up. We'll go back over here. We'll go to the T7i. I'm going to just move to camera number 4 here for a second, because I want to talk a little bit about this bed and some of the things that I do while I put some stuff away, because I tend to leave stuff a lot if I don't put it away. I'm going to put that in there because we're going to be using that later. Okay. And we'll talk about some tools in a bit too. So one of the things that I do when I'm trying to level my bed is, first and foremost, I heat up the bed to the temperature of the material I'm going to be using most often. And Jerry says I should bring her the laptop so that she can do questions. I wish I could, honey. I wish I could. Let's go back here. Come on. There we go. Let's go back a little bit so I can see some of the questions that I missed. I know there was a couple of questions here. Snapshot's asking, he wants to know if it was Peter who showed off the Balrog. Yes, it was Peter who showed off the Balrog. Have I ever had an issue printing single wall prints with large nozzle? My seams have massive holes in them. I fixed it using the plugin called Scalable Extra Prime. Curious to hear your thoughts. And that's from Erosion. I hope I pronounced that right, Erosion. Erosion, yeah, when you're doing single wall seams, because that's where you're starting and stopping, right? So you're getting some retraction, and then it's pushing that material out, and sometimes it doesn't get enough material out to fill that seam properly, and sometimes it gets too much material out, so it tends to make it a little bit more prominent than you would normally like. So yes, I think what you've done is good, and I think you should keep it up. I don't do a lot of, single wall vase mode kind of extrusions. The other thing that you can do, if you're doing just a single wall, do it in vase mode. That won't give you a seam at all. There'll be no start and stop because it'll continually spiral up. Electrical lettuce. Man, I love that name. That's pretty cool. Was working fine, then all of a sudden the nozzle doesn't reach the bed. So that's a Z offset. How that happens when your Z offset changes arbitrarily, it usually is because there's been some interruption in the signal somewhere along the line, and the command that has to go down that signal. So that can be caused by a brownout, and if you're not sure what a brownout is, it's when your lights seem to flicker. That's a severe brownout. Lots of times we don't see a brownout, and it's just a drop in electricity to our home, and that's enough to mess up electronics. So what I would do is I would clear my Z offset, I would reset it, test everything, make sure that it works perfectly. Okay. 3D experiments, we've seen, there we go. Question from Tim Postma. He says, will PETG fixable because a lot of people use PETG? Is it fixable? In what regard? Like if you break something, can you glue it back together? Yes, you can. You would be better off using an epoxy. There are some glues that are very good for using on that as well. Let me change back the cameras here because I'm talking and nobody can see me, just my hands, because I'm a fidgeter. There we go. Okay, so we switch cameras, Richard. Yes, I got that. Thank you. Thank you. Part 1. As you know, I've been looking for better NCC 1701D models. Snapshot being a very big Star Trek fan. The ones I've been loading into Cura says they're not watertight. So part 2, he says, I tried Prusa Slicer to fix and it destroyed the details on my model. And are there any settings that can reduce the destruction? If you're using Cura, for starters, Cura is a great piece of software, and it does have a way to fix models. Yes, you have to download it. It is a plugin, but it will fix the models. I find that fixing models that have holes in them, if they're not watertight, basically what not being watertight is the mesh that makes up the skin of that model is just a series of small triangles. So somewhere along the line, there is one of those triangles that may be missing, which throws you that error that it's not watertight. Now, sometimes Cura will throw a positive on those. Lots of times it doesn't, but sometimes it does, depending on the model, and I've seen that. I've printed models that have said that it's had it, and no problem. Now, best bet, download that plugin for fixing meshes in Cura. Try that, and that should be fine. If it makes your model go all funky, there is something wrong with that file. So maybe we can talk about that snapshot. You can drop me an email or a message on Facebook, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But I think that that's part of what's going on. Tim Postma idea, he says, at the first layer, have a hard drive to clear room and anything extra important to carry on a flash drive. Personally, I like to back up everything 3 times 3 days and add anything important, add it to such. That's actually pretty cool. To be clear about PETG, I meant the clogging nozzle. Okay. When you get a clogging nozzle with PETG, it's usually because it's retracting too far up into the cold zone that we talked about earlier, and it's getting cool there. So, and that's because there's a fan that's running on that throat, and there's a fan that's running on that heatsink. So some of that cool air is getting into the throat, and it's just building up over time. 3D's build, Dominic Versetto says 3D Builder is great for fixing models. Kevin says he uses Mesh Mixer to fix models that aren't watertight, better than Cura. Kevin, I have actually used that and I really like it, but you can go down a rabbit hole real quick. Yeah, you can go down a rabbit hole real quick with that. And at the end of the day, And I'm fidgeting. Somebody pointed that out the other day. I'm going to stop fidgeting. Stop fidgeting. Somebody pointed that out to me the other day. But I talk with my hands, so I don't want to seem like I'm crazy. I want to thank LDO. Real quick, I'm going to pay some bills here. I want to thank LDO for supplying the motors and all the hardware and the E3D Revo hot end for our Voron build that is coming up. The t-shirt's a little snug. So a double XL in Asian sizes is just a little too small for me. Either that or I'm too fat and I got to start losing weight. That might be the way that I have to go. So yeah, it's something that I want to thank LDO. I also want to thank these guys, and let me see if I can pull them up real quick. Let's grab the right thing. Let's thank our friends over at. Come on now. There we go. We're going to thank our friends over at 3D Lab Tech. They supplied us with all of our motion system, all the belts, pulleys, things like that. 3D Lab Tech is a local company here in Calgary. They're a 3D printing supplier company. They cater to the Voron community with LDO kits and parts and things like that. So if you are looking to upgrade your current printer, or you're looking for some filaments or anything like that, or even are interested in buying a Voron kit, I would suggest that you go to 3dlabtech.ca and check them out today for their great prices, and they ship all over. So a big Rubik's Cube. Give me a big Rubik's Cube, Tim says. Yes. I could probably do that. Alteracious, welcome back. Alteracious, it's been a while since we've seen you. He says, I've been looking to build a lack enclosure for my ender. Any tips to not break parts while assembling? Well, it's all going to depend on orientation. Here's what I did when I built the enclosure for the Prusa in the back. Let me just turn this off again. I guess I don't need that on. There we go. Come on. There we go. Yeah, I want to say that when I did mine, my first one, I put in the screws and broke everything. It was a freaking disaster. What I did learn from that experience, though, is if you pre-drill the holes that your screws are going to go into to put this together, and then hand tighten all those screws, don't use a drill driver or anything like that. Just use a screwdriver for the type of screws that you're using. You will be guaranteed not to mess it up. And please make sure that you get your acrylic cut to the sizes that you need. Not over, not under, but get them to the size that you need. If they're a little bit too big, you are going to run into problems, and you may have to shim things here and there. Yeah, just take it slow. Take it by the numbers, and you should be fine. Advanced 3D printing, hello. There's 3D HP, finally. Good. One of the things I got to do here with 3D HP, just give me 1 second. Come on. There we go. Oh, come on. There we go. Why do you keep doing that? Ah! There we go. Oh, my God. The chat's moving so fast that I can't get... Cancel. Okay. Everybody stop chatting for a second. Oh, did it again. Come on. I'm trying to do this, and there we go. There we go. So, right on. Okay. So where was I? Sorry. Squirrel moment. I was back up and talking about Let me just back up here. Alterations, yes. The lac table. So take your time. Advanced, he says, how are you, John? Send me a link. Okay, so that we got going. Hey there, Shadell. Welcome, Shadell. Hey, Simon Snow, thank you very much for the $10 towards our project. I do appreciate that. It will go a long way into helping us achieve our goal. Thank you again for that. Audio sounds like a compressor or ground loop. There's probably a ground loop going on, so I apologize for that, guys. I know there's a bit of problem. I had problems at the beginning of the show today. Getting my audio working for whatever reason. I think this PC is finally seeing better days. I may have to put in a better PC and fix all this up again. So I apologize for the audio today, guys, but there's not a whole lot that I can really do about it. We're only at 2:30, so we still got a half an hour. I will try to get through it. So let's talk about this bed. Okay, so we were at the stage. Let's go back to this camera. We were at the stage where we were talking about what I do to level my bed. So first and foremost, I heat the bed up to the temperature of the material that I'm going to be using. I also heat up the nozzle to the temperature of the material I'm going to be using. And then what I do is once that has reached temperature, I leave it for a couple of minutes. Then I'll go ahead and I will auto home my printer. I will then take my piece of paper like this. I will slide it underneath the hot end. I will lower the hot end by using the dial on my display. I will lower that hot end till it just grabs that paper. And you may already be in the minus when you're doing that, but once I do that, when it just sort of feels like it's getting a little bit of drag on that nozzle, that's when I stop. I take that number and I note that number down. So now I know I'm in the center, kind of in that ballpark. So then what I will do is I will take that nozzle and I will move it so that the nozzle itself is right over top of the screw as best I can. Okay? Then I will take my piece of paper and I will adjust it again. Then, instead of going across, which is what everybody teaches you to do, they want you to move that over and across. Let's go to a different camera here. Let's go to this camera here. Okay, you guys will be able to see it better. So what I do at that point is instead of going across, which is how everybody teaches you to do it, I go to the opposite corner. Okay? And if I've got to adjust it, I'll take my piece of paper again. I just want to feel that little bit of drag. I don't want it to really grab. I don't want to have to really pull on this. I just want to feel like it's a fingernail on a piece of paper. That's all I want, is that little bit of drag. Once I've got that, then I will move down to this corner, do the same thing. Then I will move up to this corner, again trying to get that nozzle tip right over top of that screw, and I will do the same thing here, okay, until I have it all adjusted, and then I will end up right back here at the number 1 screw. If it's too tight after adjusting, I'm going to adjust this again, and then I'm going to go another round. Usually I only have to do this in about 2 rounds. That's it. 2 rounds, that's it. Tim's asking, do I got Apple or Microsoft? I have Microsoft. John, he says, I reached out to Rob, the founder of Advanced 3D Printing in Connecticut, since his upcoming slicer helps with the challenge someone mentioned. Okay, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. It's not bad, thank you. You can hear me clearly? Okay, great. Anyone know HC? He won a roll of filament on my stream. Need him to email me about what he wants. Okay, HC, if you are in here, if anybody knows who HC is, from 3DHP's live stream, who Jerry does a live stream every Saturday. If you don't know, it's at 1 p.m. I believe. Jerry, you should be able to put your link in the chat tonight or this afternoon. Audio was good until I turned on camera 4. Okay, I apologize for that. We'll get off camera 4. Let's go back to camera 1. How's that? Is that better? How do I change a fuse as a plan B on the motherboard? Depends what motherboard that you have, Tim. And if they're a blade fuse, they just simply come out and you can put a new one in. It's really not that difficult. I believe those are Rambo boards and they use a blade fuse. Let me see if I've got a board that has a blade fuse. Hang on. Okay, I have got a board that has a blade fuse, and the boards that are in the Lulzbot, I do believe, they're not these boards, but they are a board that has what looks like blade fuses, and they're just a little fuse like this. Let me see if I can get a close-up. That's there we go, camera 2. They're a blade style that looks like this, and all you want to do is just pull it. You can find them. They're like an automotive fuse, and it should be very easy to change. All right, this is actually an old Octopus Tree Tech or Big Tree Tech board. This is a version 1.0, not a 1.1. So there are some problems with this board. That's why I'm not using this board in the build that we're doing. I'm looking to have Big Tree Tech supply us with their new Manta M8P board, I believe. Okay. Let me go back. I know I've missed a couple of things. Hello, Tom Taylor. He says they are ATC GM fuses. Okay, that's cool. That is very cool. All right, let me see if I can get back here. We got the fuse. Not sure because I have 2 printers going, but sounds okay here. Okay, I know I missed something there. Benny Brady says, I modify my bed leveling assistant in my firmware to go to the opposite corners, making a big difference. Yeah, it does make a big difference when you do that cross pattern. By not doing a cross pattern, if you're just going to chase it around the board, you're going to be chasing it all day long. And I have found that by doing this cross pattern, I can get a faster, more accurate build plate level, than I can if I chased it around in a square for 5 or 6, 7 rounds, and that has happened to me in the past, and it just frustrated me to no end. But now this printer needs a rebuild. At some point in time, this printer needs a huge rebuild, and I am going to do it at some time. But we are going to be putting on the Hero Me, which is over there. I'm not going to grab it. You guys have seen it. We're going to put the Hero Me on this. And then we're going to put the Hero Me Pro on here, and I'll show you guys the differences as well, how that's all going to work. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on here in the chat. Alterations. Oh, the noise isn't bad. It's low frequency chopping, sort of like a mic near a fan. Yeah, there should be no mics near fans, but we'll figure that out as we move forward. Um, that's the right way. I was told the other way. Each side you adjust change and the opposite corner. Yes, Tom Taylor. That is the problem. Is this becomes a seesaw, and when you do this one and this one, you've changed those two back corners. So it just makes sense to do this corner, then the opposite corner, kind of like tightening lugs on a tire. If you have that, then you're obviously tightening in the right pattern. If you go all the way around, you can run into a real problem. But if you go corner to corner or opposites, you tend to do things much better. I went back to the stream and it started as soon as you added cam 4, but now even away from it, the audio is there. Is the mic for the camera still active? No, the mic for the camera is turned off. The only mic that is on is this one right here. It is, I think it's the computer more than anything else. So again, I apologize. I don't stream from the computer. I actually stream from my A10 Mini. I don't put that pressure on the computer anymore. The only thing that the computer handles is the audio now, and some OBS stuff, but that's about it. Everything else is handled by the ATEM, and there shouldn't be any noise coming out of the ATEM. It's got to be a signal that's being routed into the ATEM, so I'll have to figure that out, and I do apologize. Indeed, blade. Yes, it is a blade fuse. Advanced 3D Printing says, I had tried posting a link to my slicer for you, but I think it may have blocked it as spam. Yeah, unfortunately, the only people right now that can post links are moderators, and I am going to change that in the upcoming weeks. You can send that to me, and I will post it later, and I'll let people know if you don't mind. And that's to richard@thefirstlayer.com. Just send it to richard@thefirstlayer.com, and I will make sure that people know where to find it. I'm looking at changing my BTT board to have auto gantry leveling with my dual Z steppers alterations, saying that could be an interesting idea. What board are you thinking about going to? Cyberwolf74 says, check your local hardware store as well. I work in a mom and pop shop, and we still have those glass fuses in the counter display. Okay, so if you're looking for glass fuses, that might be a way to go. Snapshot just looked up ATC GM fuse, and again, this is going way too fast. Tim Postma says he's got a Dell XPS 9710. It's good laptop, but it's a bit expensive. Yeah. Tim says sound is fine here. I don't hear any issues. LOL. But Tim, you're going deaf, so I'm not surprised by that. He's gonna come over and slap me. I know he is. What recommended nozzle temp for PLA? Still 200 to 230. Went with recommended temp in Cura, and it set it to 260 for PLA. Didn't notice till print at most done. Works, but lots of stringing. Okay, Cyberwool74. First thing I recommend is always do a temperature tower. Check also the material. There's a material link in your slicer. Go and check that and make sure that it is set to the temperature that you wanna print at. I've seen that where it causes problems all the time. It just happens, and at the end of the day, the problem becomes that we just forget, or sometimes we've changed it, or sometimes we say ABS. Also look up at the top and make sure that the material in Cura is actually set to PLA, because if it's not set to PLA and it's set to, let's say, generic ABS or generic PETG, it's going to try and print at those temperatures when it slices. So just make sure that you check that out. Bum, bum, bum. Richard, is there any way to get bed level information to make a map, low and high spots, to add tape to make bed more level? Yeah, you can actually do that. There is a way to do it using a Raspberry Pi. There also is a way, I believe that Michael Laws over at Teaching Tech, he's got that wonderful GitHub calibration website that he's put together. That will also help you with bed leveling, to help you get the best, or help you to create, I believe you can create a map of the bed that you have. And you are going to need a probe to do that, though, but I would go and check that, and that would definitely give you an idea of where you need to level things out if you've got a thin bed like is on this ender. So Michael Laws from Teaching Tech, just look up his calibration tool, or if somebody can put that in the chat, that would be great. You can get a mesh from some websites, okay. Tom Taylor says he put a link. I can't see the link. Somebody has allowed it through. If you have a BL Touch or similar sensor, yeah, you're going to need a sensor, absolutely. And he says yes, he does. Okay. Tim wants to know what a Voron is. A Voron is a 3D printer that you build yourself. You can either self-source all the materials to build it, or you can buy a kit. Now, Voron itself does not sell kits. The Voron community is a group of like-minded engineers that decided that it was time to make a better 3D printer than what was being offered from people like Creality or other companies as well, and wanted to build the most robust 3D printer that would print fast, reliably, and use off-the-shelf components. It is what is known as a Core XY, not a Cartesian. This is a Cartesian machine. Your Lowellsbot 3D printer is a Cartesian machine. Then you have Deltas, which have the 3 arms, and then you have a Core XY, which uses an A and B belt to control the X and Y positions of where your head is going to be. You can run them faster. They're a little bit more they're a lot more reliable in a lot of ways, and they just give you a much nicer print in the end. And with the Voron community, you can find by looking up Voron through Google, or you can join their Discord, the Voron Discord, and get a lot of information on how to build your own Voron. What we're doing here in terms of the Voron is, like I did with my first build, I'm self-sourcing. I didn't go with the kit. I had some wonderful conversations with my contact from LDO, and I understood where they were coming from. LDO has never worked with the first layer, even though we've been around for 5 years. And I want to say thank you to everybody who is a subscriber, because we just crossed 34,000 subscribers this morning, and I want to thank you guys for that. But we are a little fish in a very, very big pond in the grand scheme of things. Even though I've been doing this for 5 years, we're a very small fish in a very big pond. And they had never worked with us, and they quite plainly said to me that you know, we would love to send you a kit for your build, but the unfortunate, a lot of requests for kits, and they were not able to fulfill that for us, but they were able to help us with the motors, and some other necessary things like the hardware and a hot end. And again, I can't thank LDO enough for what they were able to help us with. Along with Fadis, they're sending out their high flow hot end for this build, as well as Keene Village Plastics, who sent out all the ABS to print all the parts, and 3D Lab Tech, who supplied a bunch of parts for us as well, including the motion system. that we're using. We did go through Misumi to buy our rails. I did pay for those rails out of my pocket. I also paid for the linear rails as part of the motion system. I've paid for all those. And I have some stuff around here that we're going to throw into it, like a power supply and things like that. So, Sheldon, hello Sheldon. What is a practical reason to print with hips? Do I need anything out of the ordinary from my printer specs to use it? Thank you. Hips, which is a polystyrene. I believe it's a polystyrene. It's a high impact polystyrene is what HIPS stands for. It prints very similar to PETG, so that's something to keep in mind. You should be able to print it on most printers. Just again, do a temperature tower prior to printing anything like that. Dominic says, can you set a manual mesh without a probe? I don't think so. I will check into that though. Thank you, DeWitt, for putting the Teaching Tech GitHub calibration up there. That's going to help a lot. I don't think you can do a manual mesh because it needs to find out what the relative position of the bed is when it's heated, and the only way it can do that is by probing different points on the bed. I may be wrong. I could be wrong. Tim's asking, he says, I like a pre-assembled 3D printer as it is quicker, easier, and better for beginners from my point of view. And Tim, you're not wrong about that statement. It is, but it's also a great teaching tool because it teaches you way more than you would find with a pre-assembled or somewhat pre-assembled kit like the Creality products or products from other companies, in the respect that it teaches you how to really dive into the kinematics. It teaches you about the back-end programming. You don't have to do a lot of the programming work. It has done it for you, but you will require to do some tweaking here and there, and it is a very good learning opportunity. So if you do have the ability to get yourself either a rat rig or a Voron, which are very similar machines in a lot of ways, I highly recommend it for anybody that wants to learn more about the process of building and process of getting into doing 3D printing for long term. Okay. Gary T just finished a print in White Star. Oh, okay, that sounds neat. Did I miss Gary T coming into the room? I must have. Yeah, Nero 3D's channel is great for information about building. Build It Basement also. He's quite new. He's only a couple of years old, but Build It Basement. If you haven't gone over there, go over there and give him a sub. He's got great information about building Vorons as well. He takes you through step by step, and he shows you what he's changing. We're going to show you in our build series, which we're going to get started here on very soon, what we're changing as well. We are doing a traditional build for the most part, but we do want to eliminate some things like an extra Raspberry Pi or having a Raspberry Pi with an extra power supply. I kind of want to get all that incorporated into one board. We are going to put lights in it. We're going to put the clicky probe on it, so we're not using the traditional set of bed probing that we normally would. One of the things that we got from our friends at 3D Lab Tech was it's called a sexy bolt, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong. You guys are going to probably laugh at me. But it is the bed leveling notch that you find on most Vorons. It's the little thing at the back of the bed, and we'll get into that. Yeah, you can use hips for support material as well. Yes, you can. Okay, Dominic says there's a menu option in Marlin for setting a manual mesh. Okay, I'll have to look into that more. Can you dissolve hips with Limoline? And it's way cheaper than water-soluble supports. or you can, I'm sorry, you can advance the saying. Manual bed mesh. Thank you very much for that, DeWitt. Thanks for putting that in there. Yes, you can enable manual mesh bed leveling in the firmware. Question about a Voron. Can you do USB-C 4.0? No, it is only USB 2.0 or 3. I can't remember which. HVAC says, I built a Prusa Bear and 2 SKR Bears and learned a lot about 3D printers. You know, Sergio, I did the same thing. When I got started, my first printer, and I talked a little bit about this on other streams, but my first printer was a Hicktop 3D P08. The biggest piece of toilet nonsense that you're ever going to find. It was built on a acrylic frame. I learned some very valuable lessons. Do not ever use thread locker with acrylic because it will eat through the acrylic and your machine will not last and it will fall apart. But it didn't work very well right out of the box. I built it according to the instructions, which at that time were very bad, and there was a lot of misinformation back then when I built that. So assembling it wasn't that hard. Getting it to run properly and getting the firmware and things on it were quite difficult because it was a sandwich board. So you had your Arduino board, and then you had another board that ran all the steppers sandwiched on top of it. So that caused problems, and there was overheating problems and all kinds of things. At the end of the day, I used that to, once I got it up and running and running somewhat good enough to make parts with, I actually 3D printed parts for another printer that I built on an acrylic frame, and that was a Prusa clone, which taught me a lot about 3D printers. It taught me a lot about Marlin, taught me a lot about the different things that I had to do and slicers and so on and so forth. And then I built a Wilson 2, which is another build-it-yourself project, open source. I really like the open source community, and that's something that Voron has embraced wholeheartedly, is the open source nature of their builds. It's 100% open source. I believe in that movement. I'm going to say I also believe in making a buck when you can, but I think the community as a whole has embraced the Voron ecosystem, and they're coming out with new Vorons that they're building all the time. And you can take Ender 3s like this one and convert it into a Voron switch wire, which is just another version of a Voron 3D printer. And we can talk about that at a later date. Brendan says, now there's a tap for Vorons with a specific tool head. Yes. Tim over at DeWitt 3D Canada, he actually put the tap on one of his Vorons recently. I believe it's on his Skittles builder, as I like to call it, the Partridge Family build. I really like that build. I think that it's very cool looking. But he put a tap on there, and it's looking great. It's looking amazing. An ANET A8 as well is too cheap. Yeah. ANET A8s, I've seen my fair share of them. Not a very big fan of the ANET A8. They have done some changes to it, but still, it was the fire hazard that nobody wanted. Actually sold my first 2 printers a few weeks ago, 3DHP says. Very good. Yeah, you had an original CR10. That's right. I remember that. Hey, just before we go, how about hitting that like button, Geraldine Ham says. Yeah, hit that like button. Oh yeah, we're getting close to the end here, aren't we? Gary T, see you next time. Kevin Jones, see you, Kevin. Hopefully we'll see you next week. I'm going to be starting the live streams on building the Voron in another week or so. I am going to start with tapping and drilling out all of the aluminum extrusion. It's already cut to size, but I want to show you guys how to do that so that if you are interested in saving yourself some money, and you just want to buy the extrusion already pre-cut to size, which you can do from Misumi, and that's what I did. You can save yourself, 40, 50, 60 bucks, depending on where you are in the world. I'm going to show you what tap to use, what drill bit to use. I have a drill press here. It's just a small tabletop one, so we'll use that. I will show you how to tap all of those ends that you need to tap so that you can get your M5 screws in there. And we'll show you how to set it up as blind joints so you don't need any extra connectors. So that's what we're going to start off with on the Voron build, and then we'll build the frame. We'll add all of the linear rails to the frame. We'll build up the motion system, and we'll take it step by step. And I want to take you guys through that and show you what we're doing differently than what the manual might say. Gary says, I might try to build along with the live streams. Great. I would love to see that. Like, subscribe, share on your socials, everyone. Thank you very much for that, Jerry. Yes, please do that. It does help us immensely. If you are not a member of our little band of crazies around here, I'm sort of becoming the crazy mad scientist, I think. And well, anybody that knows me knows I'm a little crazy anyway. But we're going to get started on this. We're going to be doing these live streams not only on here on YouTube, but also on Facebook and Twitch. We've started streaming to both those platforms when we do special stuff like this. So if you are a member over on there, or you're following us, we're trying to get our Twitch numbers up so that we can get some things going there. Thank you everybody again for your super chats today. They are going to go a long way to helping us get what we need for our Voron build and really get that thing moving in the right direction. I'm going to squeak the duck. Dr. Rich, you know, it's funny that you say that, because that was my family doctor for when I was growing up. His name was Dr. Rich. He was also a very good friend of our families, and I got to know him really well. So calling me Dr. Rich, I feel honored. I feel honored. 25 likes, 31 watching. Come on! Another great stream. Thank you, Mark Baker. I forgot to say hello to you. Take care, everyone. Shawdell 3D, thank you very much. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get started on that pretty soon, and we are still looking to get a build plate, a flex plate, magnetic flex plate, the heater for that plate as well, and hopefully, Big Tree Tech, you're listening and you're watching. We need your products in this build, so please get back to me. We've talked a little bit about some of the products that you have, and I need confirmation soon, because I'd like to get going on this. So if you're watching, please. Thank you very much, Tim. I love you guys too, and you guys are part of my family, as you are every week, and I will see you guys next week right here on the first layer. I'm going to try and get a video out this week on the Hero Me, showing you how to put it together, what parts we used. So watch for that on Wednesday. That's going to be coming out, and we'll be back here next Sunday, and I might do another live stream during the week. If you guys want to see that, just give me a hell yeah in the comments. Please leave a comment after the stream. It goes to helping us get noticed by other people. So until I see you guys next week, remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great 3D print. I'll see you guys as soon as I find out where to turn this off.